Hello, and welcome to episode 12 of The Disco Cosmic. I'm the Disco, you're the Cosmic. Although I've been thinking about all day today, and in the spirit of Venus, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. Venus is doing all sorts of, very fiery and exciting things this week. You're the Disco too, and I'm also the Cosmic. We're all here in the liminal. And I am going to be focusing on the Venus transit over Leo, because today I very, very much don't feel like a student of astrology. I don't feel like a baby astrologer. I don't feel like anything but a participant in the cosmos. And the reason I say that is because my 8th house is helmed by Leo. It's the death house. And it's the house that deals with, fears, anxieties, phobia, death, not transformation, not rebirth, none of these, things that some astrologers don't like to talk about because it's too 8th housey, but it's a part of life and it's a part of nature. So for today's disco, I decided just to be in the essence of the energies that I'm feeling. Leo does helm my 8th house. My natal Saturn is also there. I am going through some stuff that has barriers, that has that Saturnian, hang in there, keep going. It's not over yet. Until the wheels fall off, after the wheels fall off. But also having that Leo placement and that Venus, it makes me feel very conflicted, triggered. It makes me feel like the garbage song, Shirley Manson, I'm only happy when it rains. I'm only happy when it's complicated. It's just kind of damn having. So I'm just going to be in the vein. And that's one thing, when we talk about using astrology to bring us back down to this planet of Earth, this chaotic planet of Earth, when I see things like this in astrology, and then I start to feel the energies as well, because I am forming personal, intimate relationships. Right? Hello, Venus. Welcome. Saturn's over there. I don't know if you can see the picture. We're also inviting in the sun because we're talking about Leo. So I decided today to just kind of embody the energies and the signatures that I'm feeling. And most certainly in the 8th house with Venus transiting over Leo with my natal Saturn there. Yes. So I'm going to do a quick tarot size because, the 8th house and, this is Charles Obert. He's another crusty Saturnian, just like me. Just to go over some of the delineations of the 8th house. Death, fear, anxiety, lack of control, also called the idle house. It is death, not transformation, not rebirth. And what is said about planets in the 8th house, and this again comes from this book, it's the Introduction to Traditional Natal Astrology, a complete working guide for modern astrologers by Charles Obert. Planets in the 8th house are out of touch, out of control, and out of consciousness. That's because the 8th house is the liminal. It's a death house, right? Even with all our technology and all our big human brains and science and philosophy and theory and everything else, we don't know what happens after death. It is truly the great unknown. So I'm going to be going from that POV because that's how I'm feeling. We're just going to do a very quick tarot size. One, how can we orient ourselves courageously towards the 8th house, seeing as though denial is a big, it's a big limitation. It's one of the limitations that Saturn asks you to face, right? It's not, we all know in the disco, Saturn's never going to ask you to do it if it's easy. So how do we courageously face this? And as a Capricorn rising, my friend said to me once, because I've been disabled since I was born. My life, it's been what it's been. And my friend said to me once, as a Cap rising, is that what you do to fear? Like, do you just headbutt it? Because it's goat. Right, yeah, yes. I'm going to say yes. In my own personal experience, yes. However, with that Venus going over my Leo, it's making me a little hard. Making it a little hard for me. Because what rules Capricorn? Mars. Right. I am not feeling like I'm headbutting anything. I'm feeling like crying, and it's only happening when it rains. Okay. So I need to know, how do I courageously turn myself towards the 8th house during this time? These things that are going on in my life that are difficult, they are challenging. I am coming up against limitations. I am pushing forwards anyways. How do I continue to be courageous? Because I do have fear. And remember, you can't have courage without fear. You gotta have fear in order to muster up that beautiful strength and passion. So that's Leo is there. We've got the Leo signature. How do I tap into that while I'm going through Venus going over my 8th house with my natal Saturn there? Okay, out of touch, out of consciousness. Right, I'm a mess. Let's go. 2, how do we deepen our connection to the liminal, the unknown, and the chaos so that we can be more attached to the reality of planet Earth, right? 8th house deals with all the things that in this society we are averse from. Death, disability, you know, things that scare us, things that we don't want to think about, things that, you know, they are scary because we don't know. How do we know that we don't know? How can we know what we don't know? So that's 2. Right. Let's see what the cards say. And question 3, how do we form compassion towards things we feel aversion to? We all have biases. We all have prejudices, you know, and it's something to be honest with ourselves about. And how do we overcome things that maybe scare us just because we don't understand? And this is where I want to talk a little bit about hashtag disabled rage, which I just recently found out from Alice Wong. I do have a WordPress. If you're ever interested in finding out, you know, where I got my influences, who taught me about disability justice, disability rights, and who really radicalized me as a disabled person, I do have a WordPress where I list all of my resources: Mia Mingus, Monty Barbin, Alice Wong, Rebirth Garments, Sky Cube Cub. There's, you know, just a plethora of information, because a lot of this Venus going over my 8th house, and also, you know, the trine it's making with Saturn and the opposition to Pluto, it brings up a lot of disabled rage. And as a disabled elder, I have been feeling that rage for a long time. And that's also why I'm wearing all this pink. I am not well right now. I do not have the energy for that rage, or I need to transmute it into a more Venusian expression of that rage. It's right here, right now. Right, this is my disabled rage, and that's all it has to be. So I just want to give a lot of credit for being up here, being who I am today, and having the courage to find compassion in the things that I felt averse to, which was myself as a disabled person. And that's the beauty of this transit. This is what I'm learning, you know. And like I said last time, you can think of the moon as a mirror, but really all the planets are a mirror. And like I said before, I don't feel like a student of astrology today. I feel like a participant who is just being knocked around by all my guests here in the disco. So thank you again for always being here with me, in gratitude, and let's get on. I will be using the Antique Anatomy Tarot because it's body stuff, and I feel very visceral, right? Okay, so how do we orient ourselves courageously towards the 8th house? And for the first card, I pulled the Hermit, which, you know, it's one of the reasons I chose this deck is because it's got the skull, and, you know, it's got the human skull, but it's also got the trees and the plants and the nature around it, reminding us that we are a part of nature. And I don't know, you know, I just feel like it's really important for us to reconnect how natural we really are, how much we don't know about ourselves. We don't know about our own brain. We don't know about our own body systems. We don't know about our own, you know, emotional responses and behaviors, much less what happens after death. I mean, even with all the science and technology and everything everywhere, it is still the great unknown. And maybe we need to take some time away to really think about, how do we face it? How do we face this courageously with our emotions intact, without minimizing the reality of death? Almost like honoring it, right? The Hermit is also like a sacred pilgrimage. How do we honor death in this life and on this planet? And how do we orient ourselves? Take some time to think about it. Maybe create some rituals around it. maybe what are some things that you can do to familiarize yourself with the fact that you're a part of this planet, you're a natural part of this planet, and somebody once said to me, you're not really alive until you accept that you're going to die. And I found that to be true. But that didn't come until lots of hermit time. So that's question number 1. How do we deepen our connection to the liminal, the unknown, and the chaos so we can truly ground ourselves on this planet Earth? We got the Knight of Coins. And, I love this for this card because it's about grounding, right? It's pentacles. And again, we've got, the flowers surrounding the human skull. So how do we ground ourselves? What are the things, I feel like it almost ties into the first question too. Knights are courageous, so what is that courage going to inform your behavior while you move around here on this planet Earth? After you've accepted, okay, I live on this planet Earth of chaos, I'm going to have all these messy feelings, I'm a messy piece of spiral nature, and there's no real geometry, it's just all fractals, and I have to take this leap of faith, and the liminals, the unknown must remain unknown. Get on your horse, sit your ass down, decide how you want to move. Yes, this is our planet. This is entropy. We're in it. How are you going to move through it? And how are you going to display your courageousness towards it? Because it's not going away. The last question is, how do we form compassion towards things we feel aversion to? And this is a really, when I wrote this question, I also thought about myself, because even, it's why I said the things I said about, checking out my WordPress and learning where I became radicalized as a disabled person. Because one of the things I most certainly had an aversion to was disabled people, which is why I hid my illness for so long. And it is only because of the courage of others to face these things that we are afraid of, that I've had people call me their worst nightmare. I have learned that that's not my problem, and I love my life, and nobody can say anything to me about it. But that took practice, and it took a lot of time spent thinking about the 8th house, which is where the disco originated from, where the 8th house disco for the end. So how do we form compassion? We've got the 3 of Wands. And the 3 of Wands is about exploration, right? Go out there to learn. Look at my WordPress. Go look up the people that I have on there and follow them on Instagram. Follow disabled justice, disabled rights, and disabled advocacy leaders and speakers, and understand what words trying to say. And part of the reason I'm up here, it is for disability visibility, because one of the reasons that we are so easily tossed to the side is because we're not even seen. People don't even really understand what being disabled is in this country. And most people don't want to, because they're averse to it, because of the 8th house, right? That's one of those things in the 8th house. And with this 3 of Wands, how do you form more compassion? Lean into it, explore it, talk to people, read about it, get educated. And that's what Saturn has to say to you. That's what I have to say to you. You're the disco, I'm the cosmic. Venus over Leo, my 8th house, my natal Saturn, wish me luck. Cosmic out, disco out. I'm falling apart here. Just one last thing. I was watching The Departed as I was putting together this little thing, and there's a part where Jack Nicholson comes to the bar and he asks one of the, Boston people, how's your mother doing or whatnot, and he says, oh, she's very ill, she's on her way out, and he says, Jack Nicholson replies, well, we all are, act accordingly. And I just thought, it's never a coincidence, right? I mean, that's truly, truly what it is. Act accordingly. We've got this life. We know we're here right now. What we decide to do with that, that's what I find astrology to be so helpful. Even during this time where, I feel like this is playing out so loudly in my life. It took me a lot of energy to even get up here. I don't even have glitter on. Didn't have that energy. And that's okay. I still made it. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Take care of yourselves.